Alright, hi there guys. We are going to be taking down Sokolov today. And that's pretty much it. Yep, this level's not that long. There's really only 2 people of note, so we're going to get right to it. Quick side note, if you do decide to go talk to Martin before you enter into this level, he will talk about Campbell's journal, and he will reference it as the key to the Abbey. He's of course referencing the Abbey of the Everyman, which Campbell was actually in charge of. In the last episode, we stole that journal from him and all of that good stuff. And he says it's truly the key to the Abbey because it's filled with tons of blackmail that truly can get you really anywhere. So it's a wondrous, great journal full of horrible things about other people that you can use to do, whatever you want. Perhaps it's foreshadowing. Maybe Martin's going to be a giant asshole. But we'll find out about that later. So here is the first guy that we will be talking about, and his name is Bob. Hi, Bob. Oh, Bob's dead. Actually, we're going to be talking about Pratchett, who I just killed right there, and now I'm entering into his estate. He is literally the only other person in this level that I can think of that is of any note. So who is Pratchett? Well, he is the person that's been making all the eels that you've been eating. Yes, so he is in charge of Pratchett's jellied eels, which, if you didn't realize that you've been eating eels, neither did I. But yeah, those tin cans you've been eating, those are eels, jellied eels. So, delicious food. And, very nutritious. Raises your health a little bit. Anyways, he has a picture of you in his house, because, Corvo's actually kind of famous. So it makes sense that there's a picture of him somewhere. Other than that, he is, kind of mad at the City Watch because of the curfew, and it's interfering with his business, but he says, hey, you know what? I'm a smart businessman. It doesn't really matter. Those who, a smart man will still make money regardless of the circumstances. And God says something about Sokolov, and you can tell that Pratchett does not really like Sokolov at all. He thinks Sokolov's an idiot. But anyways, and brings in really smelly things to the city, like whale smelly things and stuff like that. Which is pretty true, but, whatever. So, other things of note, Pratchett is probably a reference to Terry Pratchett, the author of Discworld, which it's been stated several places that Dishonored probably gets some of its inspiration from that series of books. Similar cities and whatnot. So, that's Pratchett. Not really much more to say about him. The other character we haven't talked about is the bridge itself, which, according to the Heart, this bridge has had basically everyone and their grandmother jump off of it. Whether it's lonely women, crushed men, plague victims, everyone has sought solace jumping off this bridge, which is really kind of depressing. If you think about it, the bridge looks fairly clean. I mean, it's a little run down, but it doesn't look, like anything like Dark Souls or scary, well, not scary, but you know what I mean. It doesn't look as though it's something evil necessarily. But, in fact, it really is. It's very interesting because the bridge itself has taken so many lives, and it's a gateway as well to trade. Because this is where all of Sokolov's experiments and things come in. All the minerals and all the supplies he needs in order to conduct his experiments come in through here. The Heart also says that Sokolov himself sees the Tusk Leviathan in the stars. What do you see? Tusk Leviathan is, of course, a reference to the Outsider himself. Whether or not he is the Tusk Leviathan or just a Leviathan or whatnot is not really made clear, but that's something interesting too. So this bridge in general is a horrible place. Many men died building it. There's blood beneath the stones and the arches. So, not really a nice place. Not really a place you want to be. And you don't really think about that just looking at it, that this is actually, a place filled with blood, filled with death, filled with horrible atrocities, people committing suicide, all sorts of things like that. You don't really think about that. But that's what it is. And so, yeah, very interesting. Very interesting bridge. And, when you listen to Hart talk about all of this, and you know that it's the Empress, you wonder if she knew all these things, why didn't she try to stop any of that? Anyways, we'll talk about that later. Alright, so right now we'll talk about one other side note. I know, actually there's been quite a lot to this level. But, there's someone you come in upon. It was where I got the ruin in that shrine. And if you read that man's journal, he's really not named, you'll find out a very interesting story. You see, he details why he built the shrine and kind of why there's a dead body in the corner of his room. So he built the shrine because he couldn't see it from every place in the room, which, kind of seems a little mad. But that seems to be what those ruins do to people, so it makes sense. So he couldn't see the ruin from every place in the room, so he built that shrine for it, and he said, "Oh, it looks lovely in this candlelight," is basically his words. Now, his brother came over for dinner, and he caught him in the room holding it. Just holding it, probably admiring it, looking at it like, oh, why is there blue candlelight and everything around this thing? So he then, murders his brother because he's a thief, and says, oh, my brother faked coming over for dinner just so he could steal my thing, which is pretty mad in general because his brother probably just came over for dinner and he's misinterpreting that. But it kind of gives this Lord of the Rings vibe to the ruins. It makes it seem like each one of them is the ring, and it's going to drive everyone mad, and everyone's going to want it. And that seems to be what happened to this poor guy, and what happens to other people who stay around these ruins. So that's a very interesting thing, and I'm probably going to go into a little more detail after this, but we really have to get to Sokolov. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. Alright, so Sokolov is from Tivia, the land of survivalism and refinement. It's very cold, hostile ecosystem. Its residents are known to be skilled in culinary arts, which makes a lot of sense since Sokolov is making these potions and things. Other things of note, Campbell tries to assassinate Carnot with some Tivian red. Tivian poison was used to try to assassinate you, Corvo. And so this land is definitely a land of a lot of poisons, a lot of culinary arts, very skilled in kind of creating those potions and things. So it makes a lot of sense that Sokolov would be from here. Now, it is also a land of refinement and art, hence why Sokolov is a painter as well. Tivian art, from architecture to fashion, has been described as ornate and complex. So he's from that land, and you can see that his kind of environment has definitely shaped him. He's very good at poisons, potions, all sorts of things like that, and he's a great artist, very renowned for his his paintings of different people. He's painting Campbell at the beginning of the game, so you can kind of see that. It uses forced labor in its labor camps, and one interesting thing you can do is, as you're running through this level, if you go into Pratchett's manor, and there is a painting that will have Tivia written on it, and you'll see kind of the climate that you're coming from. It's, complete ice, and there's this submarine shooting out of it. It's actually a really cool painting. And, so that's the area we're talking about. That's where Sokolov hails from. And there's another story about a jewelry thief from Bristol named Blue Hen Jane, who ends up being put in one of those labor camps in Tivia. And, so that happens. But Sokolov, in general, very interesting person. So I've clearly run out of screen time, and we barely scratched the surface. So I'm going to record some other fun thing, just me doing some fun things to kind of put up while I talk about Sokolov. So Sokolov was a painter, and Granny Rags of Vera Marais tells us this, that he painted her when he was barely just a man, so he has clearly been painting ever since he was very young, and he's a master painter. It became kind of cool in the aristocracy for the aristocrats to ask him to paint their likenesses, and they would pay exorbitant amounts of money for this to happen. He actually hated all of them, but he did it anyways. And then he partnered with Edmund Roseburrow. Now, Edmund Roseburrow is a really interesting character because he kind of shrunk into obscurity and poverty. And that's when he realized, because he was on kind of these whale yards where they'd cut up the whales and they'd do whatnot, and he saw some workers there throwing whale oil into a fire. And he realized, hey, this would make a wonderful fuel source. So he decided to refine the whale oil. And this kind of sprung the entire Industrial Revolution for the world of Dishonored. He basically started all of that. And so he created this, and out of obscurity and poverty, he created Roseburrow Industries, became extremely wealthy. He created some motorized rail cars, some ships with onboard motors, and then him and Sokolov teamed up together to kind of create these new cutting-edge technologies that were basically run by whale oil, powered by this whale oil. Now, the sad part is that because of those cutting-edge technologies, the City Watch was able to kind of have this authoritarian rule. The government was able to have this authoritarian rule over the citizens, and this created a lot of just sadness and horrible situations. So Roseburrow ended up hating his legacy, hating the thing he created, and he ended up committing suicide in his own room. He let his Roseburrow Industries collapse and fall apart, and then he committed suicide with a whale-powered pistol, which is, a little bit ironic there. And he did that about a year before the rat plague came, so it kind of makes me wonder if, we know that the rat plague is from foreign rats that were brought here to Dunwall. Was he responsible for it? Was he trying to destroy the monster that he created? I'm not entirely sure. It'd be a little bit of speculation to say so, but it's possible. It's possible he wanted to kill everyone and erase all of the technology that he had created and set it back to, stage one. But, that's still pretty terrible, killing everyone, so I kind of doubt it, but it's a possibility. So in the meantime, Sokolov is kind of the head of the Academy of Natural Philosophy, of which Piero, who made the blue potion, and maybe the red potion, he claims to anyways, is the youngest graduate, which pissed off Sokolov, so he had him basically expelled. He's the one who's responsible for that, and Piero, greatly blames him for that because he thinks he would be one of the kind of headmasters at the academy by now, which is probably very true. So huge rivalry there, and then Sokolov then took up an apprentice who is Delilah Copperspoon, who was a simple baker. Just a baker in the city. And he took her up as kind of a apprentice. And sometime before the whole things transpired in Dishonored, before the events transpired, she left. Now, the thing is, Delilah Copperspoon is actually the head of the Brigamore Witches. So she's been marked by the outsider, which is kind of funny because Sokolov is so obsessed with the outsider that he performs black magic, sacrifices, and all these sorts of things to try to get the outsider's attention, but the outsider says he's not interesting enough. So he never actually meets the outsider. Whereas Delilah, his apprentice, the baker, who's actually a witch, and marked by the outsider, so she has the same mark you have, she's met the outsider. And, she was a friend of Jasmine. There's a lot of things we could talk about Delilah, because she's such a simple character when you talk about the Dishonored series, but once you kind of include Briggamore Witches and the Knife of Dunwall, it just becomes, she's a very important character at that point, because, you know, she is the head of the Briggamore Witches and whatnot. Anyway, Sokolov basically hates Hiram. He's not an evil character, he's just kind of grumpy, and, you know, you need him to figure out who is Hiram's financer. But yeah, that's why you're capturing him, is just to find out who's Hiram's financer, so you can figure that out. But yeah, Sokolov's not actually evil. He's kind of just a neutral character. He likes to party. He's, you know, drunkard and a womanizer in his spare time, but he's also he's extremely busy. He's either lecturing at the academy, painting, setting up security measures, inventing new things, or drinking and partying. One of those things, and black magic, of course, because you can't get away from that. Anyway, so he was a friend of Jasmine's, and he respected her even though he hates politicians in general, including Hiram. And if you decide to actually get the good ending of the game, if you go for, low chaos ending, him and Piero actually team up and cure the rat plague at the end of the game, and everyone lives happily ever after. So, he has the potential to be, a really good guy. He also has the potential to kind of be just kind of a dick. But yeah, so that's Sokolov in a nutshell. He likes his King Street brandy, but I mean, who doesn't need a little bit of brandy now and then? Once he gets past his overall douchebagness and decides to actually work with you guys, he's actually a really, really cool guy. So he's brilliant, fun. Once he stops being grumpy and complete jerk to everyone, awesome dude. But so this will be the end of the episode here. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.